Hello, everyone. My name is Jerry Wise, and I am a life and relationship coach. And I work with people all over the world, as does my guest who is with me here today, too. And we are talking about the principles of self-differentiation in this series. And this is number 6, I believe, in that series. And we hope the discussions that we have are a help to you in understanding more about self-differentiation. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Sign up for the workshop. There's a few spots left on reducing your reactivity on December 5th, 2020 on Saturday. It's going to be hosted by me on Zoom. And go to the website and go to events, and you can sign up for that workshop. Join as a member on this YouTube channel, and we have memberships for $1.99 a month, which helps us provide more free videos for you. And subscribe to this channel as well. Yitz Goldberg is joining me today. Thank you, Yitz, for joining me. Would you like to introduce the topic?
Sure, let's do this.
Say hi to the guests. Hi to our viewers.
Hey everyone. This is the 6th principle, basically the 6th video of this series. And this principle is being able to seize automatically being one of the system's emotional dominoes.
And I like that.
Yeah.
How do we cease being an emotional domino in a relationship system? And if we can learn how to get out of line in the line of dominoes, then we don't fall when everyone else falls or gets pinged or gets triggered. Or I also think of it as, emotional circuit breakers. I want to be one of the circuit breakers. I want to use the circuit breakers so that I'm not just having the current of the anxiety flowing through the whole system, going through me without interrupting it. Because if I don't interrupt it, I'm just going to become one of the people on the mobile. You know, you have a mobile that's hanging with all different pieces, and you pull one and everybody shifts. And I want to be myself, and I don't want to be one of those dominoes that just falls. Can you explain that more?
Yeah, I feel like this principle is a bit more advanced because to know how to do this, you need to be very aware. So when something's going when something's becoming intense. So I think the first thing about this principle is that awareness is key, right? Because if you're aware that intensity is coming and you're aware that very often this intensity affects you or pings you, and you learned already to take a step back, then this is what this principle talks about. When things are happening around you, and the right thing for you is to take a step aside, that way you don't become part of that anxiety and you're able to continue observing what's happening. And very often that anxiety could even stop because you took a step away from it. So very often you are also the cause by taking a step away, the cause of it stopping or at least calming down a bit.
Right. We can have a lot of influence in systems that way. If we can stay out of the line of the current, and we are a circuit breaker in the system. Yeah. And the best circuit breaker for systems anxiety and systems functioning is self-differentiation. That's the best circuit breaker, to speak in general terms.
Yeah, it is important to remember that at first, when someone will do this, it could bring up more anxiety in the system, because the system might not understand why you're suddenly taking a step back or why you're moving away. I don't mean this physically. I mean this emotionally, right? I mean this taking
moving
a step
away
back
emotionally or staying
from the anxiety
calm.
Or staying calm. And some systems won't necessarily accept this or allow this.
Well, and they'll say, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
Why isn't your hair on fire?
Right.
Our hair is all on fire. Why isn't your hair on fire? Do you not care? do you not love us? Do you not, all those kind of,
Yeah.
what's wrong
And
with
to
you?
me, it's about choosing the intensity, because I could choose the intensity of my hair being on fire with everyone else, or I could choose the intensity of people screaming at me or being angry at me for not being with them, for not having my hair on fire with them. So both
We're not
situations might
choosing
be
or going
intense.
with not being highly charged.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's choosing the intensity. It's choosing the I don't know, the anxiety that might come up, but it's about staying calm while that is happening. And part of being able to take a step back is coming out of that calmness, out of that maturity, out of that ability to self-regulate ourselves.
And we have a lot of pressure in immature and dysfunctional systems to go along and get along, to do what the system is doing, and to have too much we-ness happening. And so you need to have the same emotional reaction that they're having. And if you don't, then you're either disagreeing with them, shaming them, guilting them, even when actually what you're doing is just staying calm. But it's perceived as an attack. It's perceived as an attack, and calmness can be perceived as an attack. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you as upset as all of us are? Because being that upset is only going to make things worse rather than better. That's and it won't, or why don't you join with us in saying how awful that person has been? Well, because I think there's enough awful being weaponized that I don't need to join the troops. That's already being highly intense. Why
Yeah.
why do I need to join that on top of that? And they don't get that, and they don't understand that, and they think you're not being loyal or loving or caring or not a part of us, not a part of being a part of the family. Why don't you see it the way we see it? Because I'm a different person, and different people see things differently, even within the same family. And for them, they're going, no, people in the same family should see it the same way. Oh, well, that's a rule that I don't want to live by. Don't want to do that.
Yeah. And yet we often do that.
And yet we do.
Yeah. And to me, to be able to take a step back is it could start off more on an action type of stepping back, meaning emotionally you might still be part of the dominoes, but being aware of it will allow you to change your behavior, even if it's not emotionally yet. On an emotional level, it might allow you to change your behavior to take a step back, meaning I feel the anxiety of everyone around me, trying to force me into this conversation about whatever. And I decide to not participate, even though by not participating, I still feel the anxiety. So that could be a starting point to taking a step back. And the more you do that, the more you'll also be able to let go of that part of you on the emotional side, understanding that you don't need to be part of that dominoes, that's not even your place, that you're being forced to be there and not necessarily it's your choice. So there's levels in the recovery in this when it comes to this principle. Well, actually, there's levels of recovery in all of these principles, and it is very normal that first it would be awareness of it, and then certain behaviors that differentiate you from what you've done till now.
Practicing those, right? And
right.
then we
and then
begin to
it could sink into an emotional level.
I was going to say, then it begins to sink in. Then we begin to feel it. Just like with most anxiety, and just like chronic anxiety within the whole biological life forms of the earth has chronic anxiety, and when we have that anxiety, oh, now I've lost my point. We want to, what was it? As we learn it, as we learn to practice that, it begins to soak inward, and we actually begin to change our inner level of functioning emotionally, and we become more calm by that practice. And the point I was going to make was about fear or anxiety. All of us want to do something after the fear goes away. That's not how you deal with anxiety and fear. Wouldn't that be great? Okay, I'm going to feel better after I get self-esteem. Well, of course you will. Now, what are you going to do to resist non-self-esteem so that you can feel better? Same with anxiety. We work through the anxiety to become less anxious. And so you act in spite of the anxiety, and you continue to do that as the anxiety goes down. And all of us want it to go down first, then we'll do what well, of course, that'd be great. I would like that if somebody could do that. I always wanted that. I said, if you could just fix my anxiety, then I'd feel brave. Then I'd feel confident. Then I'd feel, well, I'm going to have to practice bravery, practice confidence in the face of anxiety, is what I'm going to have to do. And that tends to give me more benefits when I do that.
Yeah. And when I think of a domino, kind of, when I think of the dominoes, so I picture other people taking a step back from the dominoes as well. So in a healthy system, you're not the only one necessarily taking a step aside, but it could be you're part of the dominoes, and then other people are taking steps away, and that is normal. Like, meaning that's what a normal or healthier system, I guess would be a better way to say, will look like. So it's not only you doing that, but it's other people around you, and understanding that that is part of this principle. That is part of allowing other people to take that step aside, to take a step back, and understanding that that means nothing about your domino and your block.
And thinking about it, as many people use the term group think. Well, there's group feel as well as group think. And can we stand with ourselves, with our own thinking and our own feeling, and not be taken in and become a domino by taking in the group think or group feel? And I think Brene Brown talks about some of that in her, in her books. Courage, having courage to be yourself, and how it's not easy to being vulnerable, to be yourself. And she's a Bowen person who thinks in Bowen ways, Murray Bowen. And I think with this, and not being a domino, this is how the power of detachment works to keep us from being a domino. If we're able to detach, then we're far less likely to be one of the dominoes that falls in the family system emotionally, or being a domino, or being controlled by the systems or the relationships' emotional functioning. I don't want to be controlled by the emotional functioning of the system, because then I'll be a domino, and that's will happen. There are a few videos I would recommend for people to watch that I have made on this topic about being a domino. Seeing your part in the system is one video. Reducing reactivity and circuit breakers is another video. True feelings versus systems feelings is another video. You can look those up by typing those in. And stop absorbing the feelings of others is another video that might be of help to you on this topic if you'd like more learning about that. But yeah, I like the domino notion.
Yeah. And it's hard, like when it happens, it's hard, but the more we learn to differentiate, it just happens without even having too much thought. And even a lot of times when we differentiate, we're not even in the dominoes in the first place. So we could be
Exactly.
outside of the domino, and then we sometimes maybe go in. So it changes from being in a place where you're always in the dominoes and then you struggle to get out to a state where you're most of the time outside of the dominoes, and there are certain specific people or things that kind of pull you back into the domino system.
And we have been trained to react in certain ways. We've been imprinted. We're connected to the emotional system in the family and in relationships. And we're never not connected. And so we are automatically acting in certain ways. Well, just as we have learned to automatically act in a domino fashion, we can learn and practice to where we become more self-differentiated. And now we start to automatically react in a non-domino way. And it starts to be almost without thinking. We now are more detached and are less vulnerable to the system's control and the relationship, uh, what I want to say, the relationship functioning of others, and that becomes automatic. And now the new way becomes automatic rather than the old way. And then we don't even hardly notice it. And what's interesting is, like what I say, as we mature, as we grow up, as we become more detached, as well as being able to attach to people and be intimate, because if you can detach, you can attach. And that's a healthy attachment or connectedness. The that in the world of doing it automatically, that's maybe what someone would do who grew up in a healthy home, healthy boundaries, healthy life as a family. They would do that more automatically. They would not be drug in as a domino like we might if we grew up in a dysfunctional family. They would, it just automatically, they wouldn't.
Right.
And so that's what health and maturity looks like. And sometimes that's hard to describe to some of us who haven't known what is normal and what is healthy. I don't know, when did I see that? When did I see that modeled? And I think that can be a help to think of it that way.
Yeah.
And we practice self-differentiation by becoming ourselves while staying connected. Certainly not connected in abusive or malignant narcissist relationships. I'm not talking about that. I mean connected and staying connected to others that matter to us, and in relationships and that we want to stay connected to. If we can stay ourselves, we can also be connected to others. It's not being able to stay ourselves that we have a harder time connecting with others. And this process of not being a domino, we begin to stop reacting to others' reactions. And then we are less likely to be a domino.
Yeah.
And
When you said, you were saying healthy and mature. So just a thought that I was thinking, so many people don't experience that. And these principles are so strange to them. And even to me, like these are principles that I've learned. This is not something that I was
Right.
given
You
to.
just, right. When you were 12 years old and you went, this is
No,
great. No,
these are probably not the principles. And maybe on some level, yes, but at least on
maybe,
levels
right.
that, right, there were levels that I needed to work on myself. And it's hard to come from that point of view of not understanding this type of health, of not understanding this type of maturity. It's hard. It was just a thought that kind of came up while you were saying those words. And yeah, and it's not easy, but as you always say, the options are to stay where you are or to move into this whole new world of self-differentiation. And yeah, and when you take a step back with that domino, it could be some other problems could come up, right? Your inability to connect in a healthy way, or loneliness, or even shame about yourself and your ability to be by yourself. So all of this progress could bring up new problems, but that are the real problems, right? They're much deeper, and that
Core.
will allow you, yeah, and that will allow you to really work on your self-differentiation on a much deeper level, not only with the people around you and on a very superficial, not superficial, but on a superficial level. It takes the problems on a much deeper, on a core level.
And people will sometimes say, well, when you do Bowen theory or system self-differentiation work, uh, values thinking more than feelings. And while on the one hand, many of us have been feel thinking, so we need to, rely less on the feelings in that respect. So that's true, and that's kind of where the false notion comes from, because we want to be more thoughtful rather than just more reactive and more feeling, more emotional. And so they say, oh, it's a very non-emotional thing. No, you start acting in a more self-differentiated way, and you will experience a ton of emotions. When you start challenging the system, you're going to have a lot of core emotions that will be there for us to address and that we
Yeah.
need to address. There'll be, just, and even like when they say, oh, well, it's just too thought focused. Okay, then let me give you a thought. Go and tell your mother that you're not, and your dad, that you're not going to be there on Christmas morning. You're going to be there on Christmas Eve. And the tradition has always been Christmas morning. How many feelings are coming up for you right now? A ton. Oh my gosh, I'm changing the whole system, and they're not gonna be happy, and they're gonna be mad at me, and they're gonna say I'm not being very loyal to the family, and how are we gonna deal with this? And then we have lots of feelings to deal with. And I just
Yeah.
said, here, think about this. Now tell me what feelings come up for you. A lot of systems feelings, a lot of those come up in those kinds
And
of,
personal feelings, and feelings
and
that are
personal feelings.
totally ours.
The I also wanted to say, in avoiding being a domino, and we've talked about this in earlier principle videos, but I want you to think, my emotions and thoughts end where your emotions and thoughts begin. Your emotions and thoughts begin where my emotion and thoughts end. And that we are separate, we are different, then we're less likely to just be a domino in the emotional reaction that takes place if I can differentiate myself more. And many times people will say, well, if somebody gives me a hard time or says something I don't believe, shouldn't I argue about that? Or shouldn't I try to convince them they're wrong? No, those are their thoughts, their beliefs. What I do like to do is not argue, but simply leave an imprint of differentiation in which I'll say, well, I just am not sure I see it the same way. And then I don't get into it. I've just differentiated without arguing about it. Well, I'm just not sure I see it that way. I'm just not sure I remember it that way. I'm just not sure I understand it in that way. I know where they end and I know where I begin. I've just made a statement that I've just talked about my feelings. I've let them have theirs. If I don't do that, and if I can't let them have theirs and me have mine, now we're going to have to argue. Yeah, but I didn't say that. I never did that. What do what do you mean? That never happened. Oh, yes, it did. And this is the way I remember. Now we're off to the races. And the dominoes start falling. And I would like to say, that's not what I remember. I do hear that you remember it that way, but that's not how I remember it. And I'm going to act, believe, take actions, and in a way based on what I believe and what I remember. That's the most power I have because I don't have the power to change you. I have the power to argue with you, but that's a no, that's a keeping the status quo and everything just the same. And I just become one more domino and walk away feeling awful, tired, exhausted, mad. You walk away feeling awful, tired, rejected, mad, blah, blah, it's just same old, same old. But if I say, that's just not how I see it. What's for lunch? And again, it's matter of fact, calm, and I'm differentiating without defensiveness or arguing. I'm less likely to be the victim of being a domino in the system.
And you're still part of the system.
I'm
the way you've
still
communicated
part of
exactly.
the system. I have not rejected anybody. I have not blown up and become a Viking with somebody. I haven't, I'm still a part of the system while being myself. And that's a delicate balance and not an easy balance. And it does take practice. It does take practice. And I know that for the decades I've been practicing. It takes a long time. I'm not saying benefits can't happen sooner. They do. But it is the work of a lifetime. I mean, it's either I do that work or I stay a domino for the lifetime. We can choose. Everybody has a right. And I respect people right if they want to stay a domino and get knocked down by the system. If that's what you want or need, who am I to, I don't have the pay grade to decide you can't do that.
If you want to be a domino, then be a domino.
Be a domino. And I would just tell someone, let's just accept I am not yet ready to not be a domino in the system. Let's at least stay there. And I can accept that too, because I have to accept you. It's not, oh, well, I can't let them be a domino. Well, why can't I let them be a domino? Is it my life or their life? I think it's their life. I can tell them the pros and cons. I can do all that to be of help, but nobody gets to decide what I want to decide. That's up to me, or what I'm not ready to change. That's part of it. Well, we're coming to the end of any last comments you need to make, Yitz, before we close out?
No, nothing special. Just stay tuned for our upcoming principle, which will be the 7th principle of self-differentiation. and which is being clear about one's own personal values and boundaries.
Very important. Thank you, Yitz, for joining me today and hosting these videos, because I think they can help a lot of people. Yitz works with clients. I work with clients. We have some other associates who work with folks who want some help in this area. Please join the workshop on December 5th. Go to the website under events and you can join. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, join the membership. I do want to thank you for joining and listening to us today, and have a great day and be wise.